Hello to all of you, dear audience of the Elixir of Awareness channel. Welcome to episode 23. We're going to go through the 8 steps to success together in the next 8 episodes. And the first step of personal development is attitude. So please stay with us on this 8-step path to success. We believe that these talks aren't about life after death, but the real truth is about our life before death. These steps are about how to get old without being afraid of life and death. All our effort during these 8 basic steps of personal development is to find ourselves. Many of us have lost and forgotten ourselves somewhere in life one day. During these 8 steps, we'll discuss topics such as planning, pragmatism, and how to make our dreams come true. But the first thing we should talk about is our attitude towards ourselves. Psychologists call this self-concept. William Shakespeare says there is nothing more confining than the prison we don't know we're in. And the prison of self-concept is usually a prison whose walls we don't see and we don't feel it. Self-concept is the idea that we've of ourselves. It means that we think about how beautiful we're, how smart we're, and how worthy we're of success. And this is what unfortunately many of us have a wrong attitude about. Most of us don't have the right idea about ourselves. We feel that we're too weak or not enough to think about our wishes. And this is the first prison that we've to get out of. In an experiment conducted by behavioral scientists, researchers put several spearfish into a large pool with their prey, which is sardines. Then they placed a glass surface between the spearfishes and the sardines. Spearfishes want to hunt sardines, but when they attack, they hit the glass hard. They don't know what happened. They go around and attack again and hit the glass again. Spearfishes repeat it over and over again, and they don't feed it for a while, and they gradually get hungrier and hungrier. After a while, most of them get disappointed with the result and start turning around themselves. Then the researchers remove the glass surface. There are no longer any barriers between them, but most of the spearfishes spin around themselves so much that they faint at the bottom of the pool, while they got exhausted and weak. They no longer attack because previous results have created a frame of mind for them. In fact, they were trapped in a mental prison. But many of us are stuck in the prison we made for ourselves, like those spearfishes, and this is the first prison that we've to get out of in the first stage of personal development. In some societies, several institutions make us not have a good idea of ourselves. The first is school. In some educational systems, only 2 types of intelligence are important: memory intelligence and mathematical intelligence. And if you happen to have a good talent in these 2 kinds of intelligence, you'll be labeled as smart, special, and deserving of success. And if you aren't talented in any of these 2 types of intelligence, you'll study for years while you feel that you aren't enough to achieve your dreams and big good results. The second thing that can make us not feel good about ourselves is family. Sometimes the family creates wounds in us in terms of personality, and may now, when you're watching this episode, those wounds have had a very deep impact on your life. The third factor that causes our attitude towards ourselves and our abilities to be pessimistic is society. In some societies, the general structure of their government has a fixed form. It doesn't matter how much you progress. It doesn't matter what long-term plan you've. If the structure of the society you live in is such that everyone can't progress in the same way, then our efforts will definitely not be proportional to our achievements. And as a result, we've to spend many times more energy and go through the more difficult path. This makes us feel that effort, fighting, and planning aren't important in the society we live in, because the input doesn't match the output. And as a result, we feel that our efforts aren't enough to achieve success. As we said earlier in the episode of tenets, the next factor that causes us not to feel good about ourselves is short-term society. A short-term society is a society that's destroyed the vision of its citizens. And citizens in this type of society can't plan for their future years. If you don't know what the long-term plan of your society will be, you definitely can't have a good plan for your future also. The first problem that this type of societies creates is that they don't allow people to dream. When they take away the future image from people and blur their vision, the first thing that will be lost in them is the courage to dream. The ability of imagination, and that we've a dream for which we wake up every early morning, is very effective on us to have a good mood. In a research in a country in the subway, They ask people over 30 years old, what is your dream? Except for health and a good end of life, which are very good wishes, but they aren't the driving engine for action. 87% of people didn't have any clear wishes during this research. And actually, they'd no apparent reason for waking up. They left their dreams somewhere. And the interesting point is they get on the subway every day and probably go to their house or workplace that they hate. Therefore, the society you live in is very important and decisive in your destiny. Like the most success psychology, we don't believe that you'll be able to easily travel the path of success by reading the world's best-selling books in the field of success and planning. Because we fully understand the impact of the conditions and the society in which you live. If you live in a developed society, you definitely have more chances to progress. And if you live in one of the underdeveloped societies, you definitely have a more difficult path and more complex challenges ahead of you. And yes, we know that this is an unfortunate truth. But history has always proven that when a person decides to change their life, they'll be able to do unimaginable and amazing things in any situation. So please don't despair. By the way, we try to protect you against problems and issues with realism. We already said in the first episode of the Elixir Awareness channel that Jung says, we can't change anything until we accept it. There's a famous experiment in psychology where a block of ice is held close to the arm of a hypnotized person, and the person is told that it's hot charcoal. Although it's actually ice, this belief is formed in the person's mind that it's hot charcoal. And as surprise and disbelief, the person's skin completely shows signs of burning. The person's skin blisters become red and inflamed. Because the person really believed that it was hot charcoal, not ice. There's a disease called DID, dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. It happens to people whose personality is divided into several parts because of the tragedies that happened to them in childhood so that they can bear the suffering of those wounds. These patients have strange symptoms, but one of their most interesting features, which is related to the topic of our conversation, which is the attitude, is that in addition to changing their personality and behavioral characteristics, some of their physical characteristics also change. For example, sometimes a DID patient uses different glasses. In one character, their eye number may be 2, and in another character, it may be 4. A female patient with DID had type 1 diabetes and needed insulin to continue her life. But when her character and her attitude was changing, she didn't show any symptoms of diabetes in her other character version. Do you see how it's amazing? Her body is like hardware, but only changing the software or her attitude and belief towards herself has caused some of her appearance characteristics to change as well. And that's so wonderful. The next experiment that shows how important attitude can be is placebos. Researchers at a university registered a drug and invited volunteers who had knee joint pain. Then they were told that this red pill is the definitive cure for joint pain in the knees, and this medicine has now been tested and produced, and after that they'll no longer feel any pain in their knees. After a few months of using the drug, they were asked to fill out a questionnaire, and they were asked how effective this medicine was. About 73% of them said that either the treatment happened significantly or they were completely cured. The interesting thing is that this medicine had no effect in relieving or treating joint pain. It was just a placebo and actually a simple multivitamin. But only the faith and attitude that was given to the volunteers that the drug will be the definitive cure for the pain helped a lot in their treatment. If you think that you'll win or lose, you're right in both cases. If you look at yourself and your possibilities like a winner, then the probability of your winning in the game of life will increase. But if you look at yourself like a loser despite all your talents and limitations, your achievements won't be much. The first prison that we must bravely tear down its walls and get out of is the prison that we built for ourselves with wrong attitudes and burdens. This is the first big and important step in the path of personal development. We talk about the power of questioning and thinking about seemingly trivial matters. We're talking about the fact that if you weren't loved in a period for any reason, it doesn't mean that you aren't lovable. We just say actually that if those school's exams have turned one number into your identity, it doesn't mean that you aren't creative, intelligent, and talented. Eventually, those exams only test two types of your intelligence, and of course also your condition was very effective in that final grade. But as we said in the episode of Sign of Genius, according to neuroscientists, we've 34 different types of intelligence. And there's no person in the world who isn't a genius in at least 5 of these 34 different types of intelligence. Now look into your eyes in the mirror and say hello to yourself. And don't forget that you're a unique genius, but in your own way. Well, this was the first step in the path of personal success and development. Now, our final question of this episode is, what attitude do you have towards yourself now? And what attitude do you decide to have towards yourself from now on? Please share your comments with us. And don't forget that there's still 7 more steps left. Thank you very much for accompanying us until the end of this episode.